What's up? I'm SYROBE. Thank you all so much for the massive support on my recent Black Myth Wukong content. It's been overwhelmingly positive, and thank you all for being so patient between my uploads, as I am a one-man team on this channel, playing and editing every video myself. And I decided that the next most important thing to cover are all 10 transformations in Black Myth Wukong. Most of these transformations have some very hidden techniques that prove very useful, and I'm sure a lot of you will be surprised with my rankings, as I'm gonna try to be brutally honest. I try to remain objective in my ranking, but some things are also my personal opinions as someone who does speed runs and challenge runs for Black Myth Wukong. Here's the criteria for my list, as always, to let you know exactly how I'm ranking each transformation. I'll be testing all transformations without any special builds, and just using the Bishui B staff, essentially testing which transformations are the best with the least investment, since I don't really care if a transform is OP if you have to completely go out of your way to min-max it, just for it to be only slightly better than another transformation that doesn't require any investment. Realistically, you shouldn't really spend your sparks in your transformation tab either, because leveling up all staff related perks, spell perks, and literally anything else should take priority. I'll mostly be testing every transformation against the tiger as our litmus test, because some bosses may have weaker or stronger defensive stats versus certain elements or attacks, and I think that the tiger is a perfect way to quantify a baseline strength value for each transformation, with a few exceptions. And because the game tells you jack shit about how transformations work, let's go over the most important parts. The little buffs in the middle of your transformation screen are upgrades, which can be activated using sparks without using its corresponding transformation. Basically, you don't need to use any specific transformation for these buffs to activate. As long as you spend the sparks, they will stay active regardless of which transformation you use. All of these buffs apply to both you and your transformations. However, most of them are pretty underwhelming. The next most important thing is might. Once you transform, you'll notice a little yellow bar below your health bar. Basically, think of this like stamina. It functions very similar, but this is known as might. You start with full might, and the transformation will expire when it's empty. Using abilities or attacking while transformed drains the might bar faster, but it constantly drains over time. And the good thing is you can rest at any shrine to completely reset the cooldown of any transformation, refilling your might bar completely. Lastly, we have something called focus transfer. This is a simple term that I'm coining because some transformations allow you to take whatever your current focus value that you've accumulated in your base monkey state and transfer all your current focus to be used by your transformation for extra special attacks or abilities. Not every transformation can do this, so I'm gonna keep a label on each transformation that can or cannot focus transfer to help clarify. Starting off the list at D tier, we have Hoarfrost. Hoarfrost is the worst transformation in Black Myth Wukong. Initially, I thought it had some sort of hidden tech thanks to its special Ice Sheet ability that causes massive AoE frostbite buildup and changes your attacks into ranged projectiles that deal frostbite buildup per hit. But guess what? This transformation just randomly decides to have a minus 13% damage bonus, meaning all the damage you deal in this form is reduced by 13%. This is not the case for most other transformations, so it's likely the developers just really wanted this form to not only be ugly as shit, but to also keep it intentionally bad as a way to make other transformations look and feel better. I genuinely don't see any scenario where using this specific transformation provides more benefit than any other transformation on this list. Thankfully, this form does allow focus transfer, so only 3 focus points stored is enough to fully activate the Hoarfrost special ability once you transform, which is what causes that AoE frostbite zone. But again, the Hoarfrost minus 13% damage bonus just prevents this transformation from ever feeling better than pretty much any other transformation. I think the ability to flash freeze everything around you feels strong because it does have insane frostbite buildup, but that's as far as the benefits to this form goes, since the damage is severely lacking. To put it simply, the regular light and heavy attacks suck, and the new moveset for the light and heavy attacks that throw snowballs on the ice sheet suck, but just a little less, thanks to it providing frostbite buildup with each hit. This form could honestly be great if it wasn't for the form randomly giving you that 13% less damage overall. This form can be a little bit more consistent in some areas like rapidly applying frostbite, but regardless, this is by far the worst transformation in the game, and in my opinion, worthy of D tier. Starting us off with the C tier, we have the Azure Dust transformation. I'm gonna be honest, Azure Dust kinda fucking blows, which is no surprise to anyone. But it's literally only up here due to what I assume is likely a bug or exploit within the game's code, which involves major spoilers in 3, 2, 1. The Azure Dust transformation itself is very underwhelming, with its biggest highlight being extremely tanky because it allows you to take 50% damage reduction during this form, the highest damage reduction from any transformation. But for whatever reason, it has a secret interaction with Erlong, the Sacred Divinity. He will not attack you while in Azure Dust. I don't know if it's because he's racist against Roxist? Geologist? All you have to do is just turn into the rock form, and then 90% of the time, he just won't come near you. I say 90% because there are some rare cases where he will try to attack you, but for the most part, you're basically immune from Erlong and will barely get attacked by Erlong during this form. To my knowledge, Erlong is the only major boss who refuses to attack you in the Azure Dust transformation, but let me know if this works with anyone else. Anyways, you can utilize the rock transformation to take a significant majority of his shield HP bar away for free, which, you know what, fuck it. This is a valid strat, and anyone who says it's cheesing can bite my stone monkey ass, because Erlong's shield instantly comes back after anyways, and you can only really use the rock transformation like once or twice in a single encounter, and Erlong can generate around 4 to 5 total shields back to full HP during the fight, so at the very least, Azure Dust deserves C tier. The Umbral Abyss, aka Macaque. Close enough. The Macaque is an amazing transformation, but in my opinion, is only slightly above the Hoarfrost transformation. At first, I thought Macaque was OP because it's very flashy, very fast, and satisfying to use. But when I compared the total damage output, it wasn't much higher than the Hoarfrost despite having less reduced damage during the Macaque form like I mentioned earlier. The Macaque form can also be a bit inconsistent. Thankfully, it does have focus transfer, which means you should always build up at least 3 focus points before transforming into Macaque, which then allows you to instantly activate your special ability to transform, which makes Macaque faster and more agile, and initially explodes, dealing frostbite buildup in a small area around you. The biggest gripe I have with this transformation is that it's fairly inconsistent to use because you have to pull off a very specific combo to get the most damage out of it. You can do any combos you want, but the best combo I could find starts off with 3 focus points built up, then focus transfer into Macaque, then instantly use your special ability on top of an enemy specifically, as this will build up a ton of frostbite. But this frostbite area of effect is very small, so you basically have to be standing on top of the enemy without getting hit in order for it to work efficiently. Because if for some reason you do get hit during this animation, it can get completely cancelled and put on cooldown instead, which kind of fucking blows when it happens. After successfully using your special ability, attack the enemy until they're fully frostbitten. Then after the enemy is frozen solid, use your special ability again for bonus damage. The biggest problem after doing this like one time, you're already almost out of your transformation's duration, which is also the biggest hinder to this transformation. This feels like one of the shortest transformations in the game. Both your abilities and attacks consume your might faster than any other transformation from what I could tell, especially with the tricky combo to set up your DPS in this form, making your DPS feel very inconsistent unless numerous ideal conditions have been met. While Macaque does have high potential for DPS output, it's very inconsistent as it requires you to perform very specific combos just to get the most damage out of this transformation, something that I'd rather just not use over any other transformation higher on this list. I think if the Macaque's attacks and abilities consumed less might per hit, it would be higher on my list, but you will see that there are other forms that do higher or similar damage with less effort and more consistent results, which is why, in my opinion, Macaque belongs in C tier. The Red Tides is the perfect B tier transformation. Not only is it the first transformation you can obtain in the game, it has some insane damage output, and it's both easy to use and consistent to achieve this damage. Nothing super overpowered, but it's always effective and versatile enough to use for your entire first playthrough for Black Myth Wukong, which I'm sure myself and many of you used for a majority of your playthroughs. The only problem I have with this form is that you cannot focus transfer, which means you have to build up your focus meter manually with light attacks. But thankfully, it does build up extremely fast, so it's not much of an issue. Besides that, your heavy attacks will normally do a quick dash attack, but after you build up max focus in this transformation state, if you dodge in a specific direction and immediately perform a heavy attack after, it'll grant you unique and special heavy attacks. Your heavy attack changes based on your directional input when you dodge. So let me show you how each works. The first 2 types of dodge heavy attack combos is dodging left or dodging right, following either up with a heavy attack. Dodging left or right into a heavy allows you to do a very fast Beyblade attack, but in my experience, it's very inconsistent and I would never use it this way. way. The best ways to use this form is to hold forwards or backwards while dodging, and of course following either up with a heavy attack. The forward dodging heavy attack combo allows you to perform a massive dive bomb that deals a ton of base damage and has high stagger that knocks most bosses down on their ass, or at the very least stuns them for a few seconds. The backwards input dodge heavy attack combo deals slightly less damage and has almost no stagger at all, but it does travel further and has better tracking for distant enemies, or enemies that move around a lot. Personally, I prefer to always use the forward dodge heavy attack because that stagger bonus is juicy, and it's rewarding as it allows you to quickly fill up your meter again for another dive bomb right after, essentially stun locking a boss. The forward dodge heavy attack can end up missing a little bit here and there, but honestly, it's a perfect form to carry you throughout most of your game just by spamming the forward dodge heavy attack stagger bomb for massive damage and bonus burn damage over time. The only thing I would change for the Red Tides form is to allow it to have focus transfer. This is actually the first form on this list that doesn't have focus transfer besides Azure Dust. But if it had focus transfer, I would easily put it in A tier. However, for the first form that you get in the game, B tier is solid enough. After extensive testing, I believe that the Ashen Slumber, aka Fire Rat, is way better than I initially thought. This form isn't super special by any means, but it has the potential to just deal an absurd amount of damage because it consumes very little might when attacking, allowing you to really lay down some serious DPS. The form also allows for focus transfer, so building up 3 focus points and transforming will fully charge your focus meter when you transform into the Fire Rat. This is the fuel that your heavy attack Fire Breath consumes, and it allows you to instantly start dishing out damage with the Fire Breath contact damage and the Fire Bane's burn damage over time. Again, what I believe makes this form so strong is that the Fire Breath consumes a rapid amount of your focus, but it does not consume a lot of your might bar. This means that after breathing fire completely, you still have a ton of transformation duration left over to slash with your light attacks and build up another full bar of focus to breathe fire once again. The light attacks deal decent damage, and so does the Fire Breath. But the biggest drawback to this form is that the damage can be fairly inconsistent for a few reasons. The worst offense of this form is that the range of the Fire Breath is deceptively small. The fire travels only a short distance in front of you, which a lot of times looks like it would hit the enemy, but doesn't. The other issue this form has is that even when you do make contact with the Fire Breath, you can be interrupted by most forms of damage. Getting hit while breathing fire will usually interrupt your Fire Breath channel, which can happen quite often as you can't play from a safe long distance away due to the short area of effect for the fire damage. However, if you do manage to get most of the Fire Breath off before getting hit, the damage is just absurd, with very minimal effort besides holding down a single button. And after that's gone, just start spamming light attacks until you can breathe fire once again. Oh, and the form itself also has a self-destruction bonus that deals extra damage and a massive area of effect upon exiting the transformation, but it has to be a manual exit from your direct input. So it's best to manually exit your form right before you're about to die or right before your might runs out. Although your mileage can vary with this transformation, it's ridiculously easy to use with high DPS returns and even higher potential damage if you can get multiple Fire Breaths off without getting interrupted and self-destruct at the very end, which is why I readjusted my list to put it at the top of B tier. At the very bottom of A tier, we have Violet Hail, the poisonous Wormguai form, and this whoa, put down the pitchforks and just hear me out, holy shit. I know this will be quite controversial because the Violet Hail form is hated by many players across the community, including myself up until recently, because well, it does suck, and also it's fucking ugly. To be honest, it's actually quite dogshit. However, this form has another really interesting and unique interaction specifically with the Golden Needle Vessel, which makes it worthy of A tier as you will see. So basically the way this form works is to stab yourself with your heavy attack and build up your egg meter. It does not have focus transfer, so this has to be done manually with heavy attacks. Each egg you store consumes your HP bar, and your eggs get planted in an enemy when you use a light attack on them. From my testing, the damage caps out at like 4 eggs, so stacking any more than 4 is just a waste. You just want to stack 4 and let them pop with your special ability, which will heal you back to pretty much full HP, restoring all the self-inflicted damage. But normally this form sucks, with its lack of range and sluggish melee attacks that deal horribly low damage to plant your eggs in an enemy, and once again, it's really fucking ugly. But as I mentioned earlier, the Golden Needle Vessel can be used right before you transform, so that when you charge up and store eggs, the needle will instantly apply the eggs to an enemy. I'm not sure if this is a bug, but basically this makes the form overpowered because you can just sit in a corner, charging eggs and sacrificing your HP from a safe distance, and letting the range attack of the needle do most of the work while dealing absurd amounts of damage. Instead of the manual melee attacks at close range, you can just plant your eggs into the enemy from a massively safe distance away, utilizing the golden needle. It's 1,000 times more efficient to do it this way, as you won't be at risk of dying before you can detonate your eggs. And detonating these eggs deals massive damage and builds up poison damage for even more bonus damage over time. And at the very end, if you have some might left, you can self-destruct by manually exiting the transformation for even more bonus damage. Spamming the eggs from a safe distance is really important because the transformation consumes your HP for each egg, as I mentioned earlier, and the golden needle interaction pretty much allows you to do this without any risk of dying and ending your transformation prematurely, making it way stronger than normal. If the golden needle interaction didn't exist, then this form would probably be in D tier, but hey man, I didn't code the game, I'm just a QA tester, and that's how this works. Again, all you have to do is pop the golden needle vessel right before you transform, and let it go to town while you charge your eggs. Freely detonating the eggs from a safe distance away allows you to deal massive amounts of damage for free, so in my opinion, this interaction makes it extremely worth the bottom of A tier, because once again, this damage is all from your base stats, and would be even higher if I completely min-maxed for it. The Azure Dome transformation, or the Stone Monkey as I call it, is a very versatile transformation. The best part about this particular form is that it's the only form that allows you to use your regular spells during the transformation state. These spells work pretty much the same with the exception of Immobilize and Ring of Fire turning into completely different abilities while you maintain the Stone Monkey transformation. The transformation itself says it absorbs and converts fire and ice for power, but most people are using this wrong. You don't need to wait to absorb specific elements, as you can directly control the elements yourself. By equipping the Immobilize spell, you get to imbue your attacks with Frostbite buildup instead of the regular Immobilize effect, and equipping the Ring of Fire imbues your attacks with, you guessed it, fire damage. Personally, I prefer the Ring of Fire, as you can use it before the form for its regular focus point generation and unique Ring of Fire buffs, and if you stand in the Ring of Fire with your transformation, you'll generate more focus points. So Ring of Fire is perfect to use before the form because you still receive the benefits from it during the form, making it a way stronger combo than just having the Immobilize spell equipped for frostbite damage. Depending on your option, you can manually select which element you like the most without needing to wait for something to let you absorb it. And one of the best parts to this transformation is that on New Game Plus, after unlocking and equipping the life-saving strand, if you manage to die during the Stone Monkey transformation, you will revive and keep the transformation, extending its duration by fully replenishing the transformation's HP and granting you maximum focus points upon reviving. However, the reason the Stone Monkey is not S tier on my list is more of a personal gripe. This is probably the hardest transformation to obtain out of all others, being locked behind the true ending final boss, and by the time you unlock this form, you will most likely be finished with the majority of the game, leaving you few major bosses to actually use it on. The damage can also fluctuate heavily depending on the attacks you use and the combos you perform. I'm completely fine with it rewarding higher skill expression, but when the reward for skill expression is less or similar to just button mashing with a different form, as you will see in S tier, it makes the Stone Monkey transformation a bit less attractive as a viable option. I personally prefer to use the Stone Monkey transformation with Ring of Fire equipped, Cloud Step, and Life Saving Strand, but again, this form is really only best on your second playthrough starting in New Game Plus, combined with the unique effects of Life Saving Strand. It also has a negative 16% damage bonus as a trade-off for being able to use your spells, which means it slowly gets worse over time, and in my opinion, is what makes it worthy of A tier but not S tier. I think the Ebb and Flow transformation is a perfect way to top off our A tier transformations. The light attack builds up focus, and the heavy attack can be charged for a giant smash attack. It also has a unique ability that allows you to block, which completely nullifies all forward-facing damage. And this form has 33% damage reduction, which most forms only get 20%. It even gets bonus HP, which makes it slightly tankier than most other transformations. However, blocking and using the default light and heavy attacks are bad in my opinion. That's because the default attacks are slow and consume your precious might, and even though the blocks charge your focus up, you really shouldn't use it either, because each successful block also consumes might, thus reducing the duration of your form, which isn't worth it because the transformation's HP bar is not the same as your HP bar, so blocking damage doesn't really matter. The thing that makes this form worthy of A tier is the Wind Walker special ability, which makes the light attacks far more rewarding. So if you really want to pump out huge DPS, you need to focus transfer into Ebb and Flow first and use this ability as soon as possible. Doing so disables heavy attacks and disables blocking anyways, making light attack spam pretty damn simple and extremely effective. While the Ebb and Flow transformation does allow focus transfer, it's the only transformation where 3 focus points stored is not enough to fully activate the transformation special ability. But you'll need to transform with 4 max focus charges to be able to instantly use the Windwalker ability. Again, the Windwalker state makes you attack way faster, deal more damage, and makes you overall more agile and can phase through enemies with your dodge. You don't need to block since you get a ton of iframes from your dodge in this state, and you deal way more DPS and can stun lock enemies just by spamming the Windwalker light attack since they get beefed up as well. Overall, Ebb and Flow is a very versatile transformation that can be used for multiple unique situations and allows for extremely high DPS output without much effort, making it perfect for A tier ranking. I think the only thing that would make this S tier is if your blocking didn't drain your might bar, or if the focus transfer for 3 focus points was enough to fully charge the transformation's focus meter and use Windwalker instantly. But regardless, Ebb and Flow is still a top tier transformation in my opinion. Now for my S tier transformations, we have both Golden Lining, aka Yellow Long, and the Dark Thunder transformations. Both of these transformations are 2 sides of the same coin, as they both primarily involve dealing thunder damage and building up the Thunderbane debuff. I personally prefer Dark Thunder over Golden Lining, but the main benefit shared by these transformations is that they both deal consistent and rapid lightning damage, which actually applies the Thunderbane debuff that reduces enemy defenses by 20%. Yellow Long has minus 15% damage bonus, but with the debuff active would actually put him in the positives around plus 5% damage bonus instead. And the Dark Thunder has a minus 12% damage bonus, but again, with the Thunderbane debuff active, puts the horse's damage into a plus 8% net increase in damage dealt after the Thunder debuff has been applied. Both of these transformations are actually able to deal way more damage than they normally would be able to otherwise. But I'll break down both individually so you can see why I personally prefer the Dark Thunder over the Golden Lining. But to be honest, both are interchangeable and either form is amazing. Starting off with Golden Lining, aka Yellow Long, I don't think this is a bad transformation at all, but I'm mainly going to be comparing it to the Dark Thunder transformation directly when I mention things that I do or do not like about it. Let's start off with focus transfer, as I've covered that for every transformation so far. However, you cannot focus transfer with the Golden Lining transformation. You must build up 3 maximum focus charges by utilizing successful see-through attacks. See-throughs can be performed in the Golden Lining transformation by using a light attack followed up by instantly using a heavy attack at the perfect time, which is basically when an enemy attacks you. It's a very specific timing, and you'll know it works when you hear a sparking sound effect and a single focus point will be generated for each successful see-through. This is the only way that this form can generate focus points. Luckily, to activate the special ability, you only need to perform 3 see-throughs successfully, which isn't super hard, but it can be quite tedious depending on the boss you're fighting. Your heavy attack transforms into a brand new dive bomb attack. You can perform 3 dive bombs at max, with each dive bomb dealing more damage than the previous one. All of your damage for this transformation comes from landing all 3 dive bombs. Missing just one, or especially missing the last one, lowers a good chunk of your burst damage from this form. But here's what bothers me the most about the Golden Lining transformation. Despite these dive bombs being ridiculously overpowered since you get 3 of them, you aren't always able to get 3 dive bombs off. Here are some ways that you can get fucked over during this form. First off, you get up to 3 dive bombs maximum. You are not guaranteed 3. If you for some reason miss your target, you don't get to keep dive bombing, which honestly is pretty hard to fuck up, but just pointing out that it can happen, as you only get to dive bomb a second or third time if you actually hit your target with the previous one. There are plenty of enemies in Black Myth Wukong that move around very fast or even teleport, so it's very possible to miss, causing you to lose all your focus points gained and prevents you from dive bombing any further, going back to square one with see-through attacks to recharge it once again. The other way it can fuck you over is that if you for some reason don't get the see-throughs fast enough, your might drains down over time regardless. And if you end up dive bombing just a little too late, you will be cut short when your might runs out. So even if you do hit your target with the first dive bomb, you can't keep dive bombing when might runs out, and you automatically exit this transformation even after you land the first dive bomb. In my testing, the Golden Lightning transformation is still very overpowered because the faults that I mentioned don't appear to happen frequently, but they do exist, and that's why I marked it down a little compared to the Dark Thunder transformation, which I believe does comparable damage while being just a bit more reliable and consistent. So here we are with the Dark Thunder transformation. Besides being missable as a part of a secret quest line, this is by far my personal favorite transformation, as its damage is absurd, even at base stats and not min-maxing for it. Much like Golden Lightning, the Dark Thunder transformation deals thunder damage and can apply the Thunder debuff. The Dark Thunder transformation does allow focus transferring, which means it only takes 3 focus points transferred to fully activate the horse's special ability instantly upon transformation, which is what really makes this form overpowered as fuck. Seriously, I wouldn't use this form at all unless you instantly activate this ability the moment you become the horse. Upon ability activation, it imbues your shitty wet noodle whip attacks with the power of Zeus, dealing bonus lightning damage, and each individual light attack strikes an enemy with a bolt of lightning from the sky, effectively making every light attack hit your target twice, all while stacking up towards the Thunderbane debuff for that extra juicy bonus damage. Also during this state, your heavy attack spawns a massive circular area that constantly zaps and stun locks bosses. There's also a neat trick with this form that can utilize the Ring of Fire to generate even more focus while you're in this form, to potentially activate even more lightning circles at once for even more insane DPS. The only thing I dislike about this form is that the lightning circle damage applies a knockback effect, so it's possible for a boss to get knocked out of the damage area completely, but you can juggle bosses around by surrounding them with circles instead while they're unable to fight back, getting zapped by the mighty power of Zeus's Thundercock circles. But seriously, the damage is absurd, and the stun locking potential makes this form completely brain dead. The circles can even last long after you exit the transformation, so there's potential for the thunder damage circles to persist even after your transformation has expired. Being able to deal tons of lightning damage with the Thunderbane debuff and stun locking bosses with multiple massive thunder circles, generating even more by standing in your Ring of Fire during the Dark Thunder transformation, is why I believe the Dark Thunder is the best transformation in Black Myth Wukong. Its potential damage is crazy high, and keep in mind, every form I tested in this video was at the same base stats and gear without min-maxing for any specific forms. So this Dark Thunder multi-lightning circle damage would only get crazier if I went out of my way to fully maximize its damage output, but I'll save that for another video. If you enjoyed, please subscribe for more tier lists, and let me know if I was able to change your perspective on any current transformations in Black Myth Wukong. Thank you so much for watching until the very end. I've been SYROBE, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.